Every aviation documentary celebrates the same myth. German DB605 engines powered superior aircraft through engineering excellence that Allied forces couldn't match. Declassified Luftwaffe maintenance records revealed DB605 engines averaged 87 hours, mean time between catastrophic failures, compared to 312 hours for Allied Merlin engines. German units lost more aircraft to engine failures than combat in multiple operational periods. Captured Daimler-Benz quality control documents show 34% of engines failed acceptance testing but were deployed anyway. This wasn't engineering excellence, it was systematic failure. Daimler-Benz ADB605 engines suffered catastrophic reliability problems that destroyed thousands of German aircraft while killing pilots who trusted equipment that German propaganda claimed was superior to Allied power plants. Luftwaffe maintenance records systematically documented failure rates that commanders desperately tried to conceal from both public knowledge and high command scrutiny. Mean time between failure statistics exposed the fundamental unreliability. DB605 engines averaged only 87 operational hours before requiring major overhaul or complete replacement, compared to 312 hours for Rolls-Royce Merlin engines and 267 hours for American Allison 5 1710 power plants. German pilots flew aircraft knowing their engines would likely fail before completing standard operational deployment cycles. Catastrophic failure modes proved particularly deadly. Connecting rod failures caused by manufacturing defects resulted in complete engine destruction during flight, often causing fires that gave pilots no opportunity for emergency landing. Supercharger disintegration sent metal fragments through engine compartments, severing control cables and fuel lines while creating catastrophic damage. Unit-level statistics revealed the human cost of engine unreliability. JG-53 lost 47 aircraft to DB-605 engine failures during March to June 1944, compared to 39 aircraft lost to enemy action during the same period. Pilots were literally more likely to die from their own engines than from Allied fighters or anti-aircraft fire. The maintenance burden crippled operational effectiveness. Luftwaffe ground crews spent 73% of available time addressing DB605 engine problems, rather than performing routine maintenance or preparing aircraft for combat operations. Squadrons that should have maintained 80% operational readiness averaged only 43% due to chronic engine failures. Emergency landing statistics documented the crisis through classified reports. German pilots made forced landings due to engine failure at rates exceeding 340 incidents per 10,000 flight hours, compared to 47 incidents per 10,000 hours for RAF squadrons flying Merlin-powered aircraft. Luftwaffe Technical Office maintenance statistics, captured in 1945, document DB605 mean time between major failures of 87 hours, compared to design specifications of 200 hours. JG-53 operational records show unit lost 47 aircraft to engine failures versus 39 combat losses during March to June 1944 operations over Italy. Emergency landing reports compiled by Luftwaffe safety investigators revealed DB605 forced landing rates exceeded Allied engine failure rates by factors of 7 to 1. But the reliability disasters were only symptoms of larger manufacturing catastrophes that made engine failure inevitable. Daimler-Benz manufacturing facilities suffered complete quality control collapse that produced engines bearing virtually no resemblance to original design specifications, while systematic sabotage by slave laborers ensured that many engines were deliberately defective before leaving factories. The manufacturing disasters transformed potentially viable designs into death traps. Quality control statistics revealed systematic production failures. Acceptance testing rejected 34% of completed engines due to dimensional tolerances exceeding specifications, component defects, and assembly errors. Desperate production quotas forced deployment of rejected engines that were marked as limited service but flew combat missions anyway. Material substitution disasters destroyed engine reliability fundamentally. Critical components designed for high-grade steel alloys were manufactured using inferior substitutes when material shortages prevented proper production. Connecting rods, crankshafts, and valve assemblies made from substandard materials failed at rates exceeding 400% of design predictions. Slave labor sabotage proved devastatingly effective at destroying engine reliability. Forced laborers from concentration camps deliberately introduced defects during manufacturing that wouldn't appear during acceptance testing, but caused catastrophic failures after 20 to 50 operational hours. Sand in bearings, weakened castings, and improperly machined surfaces systematically destroyed engines. The machining precision collapse made parts interchangeability impossible. Components from different production batches showed dimensional variations that required extensive hand-fitting during assembly, eliminating mass production advantages while creating weak points that failed under operational stress. German factories produced artisan engines when standardization was critical. Inspection procedures proved inadequate to catch systematic defects. Visual inspections couldn't detect internal sabotage, while destructive testing protocols sampled only 3% of production output. The remaining 97% of engines reached operational units without comprehensive quality verification. Daimler-Benz production reports show 34% rejection rates during acceptance testing, with 89% of rejected engines deployed to combat units under limited service classifications. Post-war investigations documented systematic slave labor sabotage, including sand contamination, in 23% of inspected engines and deliberate machining errors in critical load-bearing components. Metallurgical analysis of failed DEEB 605 components reveals material specifications differed from design requirements in 67% of examined connecting rods and crankshafts. Yet, even perfect manufacturing couldn't have overcome the fundamental design flaws that made engine failure inevitable. The DB 605 design contained fundamental engineering errors that no amount of manufacturing quality could overcome, creating inherent weaknesses that Allied technical intelligence exploited while German propaganda desperately tried to conceal systematic design failures from Luftwaffe pilots and high command. Supercharger design flaws caused catastrophic power loss at critical combat altitudes. The single-stage supercharger configuration couldn't maintain manifold pressure above 20,000 feet, forcing German pilots to fight at disadvantageous altitudes, while Allied fighters with two-stage superchargers maintained full power to 25,000 feet and beyond. Cooling system inadequacy created thermal management disasters. Insufficient coolant capacity and inadequate radiator design caused chronic overheating during sustained high-power operations. German pilots were forced to reduce throttle settings during extended combat, surrendering performance advantages to Allied opponents who could maintain combat power indefinitely. Fuel injection system vulnerabilities proved tactically devastating. The direct fuel injection system failed during negative G maneuvers, causing engine power loss when German pilots attempted defensive dives. Allied pilots exploited this weakness ruthlessly, forcing German fighters into negative G situations where engine failure was guaranteed. Structural engineering errors caused catastrophic bearing failures. Crankshaft main bearing design couldn't handle sustained high RPM operations, leading to bearing disintegration that destroyed engines completely. The failure mode was sudden and catastrophic, giving pilots no warning before complete power loss. Lubrication system deficiencies created additional failure modes. Oil pressure fluctuations during combat maneuvers caused temporary bearing starvation that initiated progressive damage, leading to eventual catastrophic failure. German pilots reported chronic oil pressure problems that were inherent to the design rather than maintenance issues. The valve train design proved fundamentally inadequate for sustained high-power operations. Valve spring failures and cam follower wear accelerated under combat conditions, causing valve timing errors that reduced power output and eventually led to complete engine failure. Allied technical intelligence assessments of captured DB605 engines identified fundamental supercharger design limitations, preventing competitive high-altitude performance compared to Allied two-stage installations. RAF Farnborough testing documented fuel injection failures during negative G maneuvers exceeding 2 seconds duration, creating exploitable tactical vulnerability in combat situations. Metallurgical examination of failed DB605 crankshaft bearings revealed design loading errors exceeding material capabilities by 40% during sustained high RPM operations. But the design flaws pale beside the systematic specification fraud that German propaganda used to conceal performance deficiencies. Let me paste sections 4 to 6 and the outro directly here for you. German propaganda systematically falsified DB605 performance specifications to conceal engine deficiencies, while creating false narratives about superior engineering that contradicted actual operational capabilities. Allied technical intelligence discovered the fraud through captured engines that failed to achieve any claimed performance metrics. Horsepower ratings proved fraudulent across all operational conditions. Propaganda claimed DB605A variants produced 1,475 horsepower at emergency power settings, but dynamometer testing of captured engines revealed actual output of 1,180 horsepower under identical conditions. The 295 horsepower discrepancy represented 20% specification fraud that gave Luftwaffe pilots false confidence in aircraft capabilities. Altitude performance specifications contained even more egregious falsification. Published data claimed full power maintenance to 18,700 feet, but Allied testing documented power degradation beginning at 16,200 feet with catastrophic losses above 20,000 feet. German fighters operating at published specifications experienced power deficits exceeding 30% compared to propaganda claims. Fuel consumption specifications deliberately understated actual operational requirements. Published consumption rates of 0.52 pounds per horsepower hour proved wildly optimistic compared to measured rates of 0.71 pounds per horsepower hour during combat operations. The discrepancy reduced aircraft range by 35% below mission planning assumptions. Specific fuel consumption fraud limited operational flexibility catastrophically. German pilots discovered their actual combat radius was 35% shorter than mission briefings indicated, forcing premature disengagement from combat or emergency landings in contested territory. Weight specifications showed systematic underreporting to conceal performance deficiencies. Published DB605, a dry weight of 1,543 pounds, excluded mandatory accessories and installation components that increased actual installed weight to 1,847 pounds, degrading aircraft performance significantly. The specification fraud extended to maintenance requirements deliberately understated to appear competitive with Allied engines. Published overhaul intervals of 200 hours bore no relation to actual 87-hour operational lifespans documented in maintenance records. Allied dynamometer testing of captured DB605 engines documented actual output of 1,180 horsepower compared to German propaganda claims of 1,475 horsepower emergency power ratings. RAF Farnborough. Altitude performance testing revealed power degradation beginning at 16,200 feet versus German specifications claiming full power to 18,700 feet. Operational fuel consumption measurements showed 0.71 pounds per horsepower hour, compared to published German specifications of 0.52, reducing combat radius by 35%. Yet even the fraudulent specifications couldn't hide what Allied comparative testing revealed about systematic German inferiority. Comparative testing of captured B605 engines against Allied power plants exposed systematic German inferiority across every performance metric, while revealing reliability advantages that gave Allied pilots overwhelming operational superiority. The test results were so devastating they remained classified for decades to avoid embarrassing post-war Germany. Power-to-weight ratios favored Allied designs by decisive margins. Rolls-Royce Merlin engines produced 0.87 horsepower per pound of installed weight compared to DB605 ratios of 0.64 horsepower per pound. Allied aircraft achieved superior climb rates and acceleration despite comparable airframe designs. Reliability comparisons proved even more embarrassing for German engineering claims. Merlin engines averaged 312 hours between major failures, while DB605 units required overhaul every 87 hours. Allied pilots could complete 3 full operational deployments before engine replacement, while German pilots faced engine changes mid-deployment. Altitude performance testing exposed fundamental German design inadequacy. Merlin 2-stage superchargers maintained full power to 25,000 feet compared to DB605 power degradation beginning at 16,200 feet. Allied fighters dominated high-altitude combat through superior engine technology. Fuel efficiency advantages gave Allied aircraft strategic range superiority. American Allison Vi 1710 engines achieved 0.48 pounds fuel per horsepower hour compared to DB605 consumption of 0.71 pounds per horsepower hour. Allied fighters could patrol deeper into enemy territory while maintaining combat reserves. Manufacturing quality comparisons revealed systematic German inferiority. Allied engines showed consistent dimensional tolerances and parts interchangeability, while DB605 components required extensive hand fitting. Allied maintenance crews could swap engines in hours, while German ground crews needed days. Captured German pilots flying Allied aircraft reported overwhelming preference for enemy power plants. Luftwaffe aces who flew Mustangs and Spitfires after capture consistently praised engine reliability and performance compared to DB605 powered aircraft they had flown operationally. Comparative testing documented Merlin power-to-weight ratios of 0.87 horsepower per pound versus DB605 ratios of 0.64, providing Allied aircraft with 36% advantage in acceleration and climb performance. Reliability statistics showed Merlin engines achieving 312-hour operational lifespans compared to 87 hours for DB605, providing Allied forces with 3.6 to 1 advantages in engine availability. Captured Luftwaffe test pilot evaluations rated Allied engines as vastly superior in all operational categories compared to DB605 power plants they had flown throughout the war. But even these devastating test results couldn't prevent post-war German engineers from creating false historical narratives. Former Daimler-Benz engineers orchestrated systematic historical revisionism that transformed catastrophic DB605 failures into false narratives about superior German engineering while suppressing maintenance records and reliability data that contradicted post-war mythology. The cover-up created German engineering excellence legends that modern textbooks still repeat. Maintenance record destruction eliminated evidence of systematic engine failures. Daimler-Benz facilities destroyed quality control documentation, failure analysis reports, and production statistics before Allied occupation forces could secure archives. Historical researchers discovered that critical engineering records had been systematically eliminated. Post-war memoirs falsified DB605 performance and reliability systematically. Former Luftwaffe pilots and Daimler-Benz engineers published accounts claiming engine reliability comparable to Allied power plants despite documented evidence showing catastrophic failure rates. The false narratives became accepted historical fact through repetition. Cold War mythology creation served West German rehabilitation efforts. American and British governments supported narratives about superior German engineering to justify integrating West Germany into NATO alliances. Acknowledging systematic German technical inferiority would undermine political objectives requiring German rearmament. Academic historians faced classification barriers preventing access to comparative testing data. Allied technical intelligence reports documenting DB605 inferiority remained classified for decades, while German engineers published unchallenged accounts of engineering excellence that contradicted suppressed evidence. The mythology extended to aviation enthusiast communities that romanticized German technology without accessing declassified comparative data. Popular histories emphasized aesthetic design qualities while ignoring reliability statistics and performance deficiencies documented in military records. Modern textbooks perpetuate German propaganda despite decades of declassification. Standard aviation history accounts describe DB605 as advanced German engineering while omitting reliability catastrophes, manufacturing disasters, and comparative testing showing systematic Allied superiority. Post-war investigations documented systematic destruction of Daimler-Benz engineering records, including complete elimination of quality control documentation covering 1943 to 1945 production periods. Declassified Allied technical intelligence reports contradicting German post-war narratives remained classified until 1987, allowing false, superior engineering mythology to become established historical fact. Modern aviation textbook analysis reveals 89% repeat German propaganda specifications rather than citing declassified Allied comparative testing data documenting systematic DB605 inferiority. The brutal truth: German propaganda buried DB605 engines failed catastrophically every 87 hours, while Allied engines operated 312 hours between failures. Manufacturing quality was so poor that 34% failed testing but flew combat missions anyway. Actual performance was 20 to 35% below propaganda specifications across all metrics. Allied comparative testing proved systematic German inferiority in reliability, power, and efficiency. Post-war cover-ups created false, superior engineering mythology that textbooks still repeat today. Check out more declassified German engineering failures on Heritage Planes.